Hi everyone, this is Ludmila, aka Mia, and welcome to Heart Mind Equation. So today we are addressing CEN, known as childhood emotional neglect, and how it is related to parenting styles. In our episode 3 of our Emotional Intelligence podcast series, we've addressed the topic of how the emotion of the parents influence their baby in the womb. Now, after that baby is born, this is the time when his or her emotional journey really starts. The parent's psychological presence is so important that it can shape the child's trust in people and in his environment. The family home, being the first social environment, is where the child learns how to interact with someone different than him. We know cases when the new mother suffers from postpartum depression. Often, in those cases, despite her unconditional love for her baby, she can manifest some psychological and emotional detachment towards her baby. Sometimes, even in routine care for her baby, she could be distant in a way that the baby picks up on her feelings, making him feel confused and distressed. What I mean by distant, I mean not engaging in any interaction with the baby while providing care for him. For example, she could be looking away when feeding him, no eye contact. She could be either crying or keep an apathic face, etc. To illustrate that topic, there was an experiment that was done by the experts of the Child Development Unit at Harvard University, directed by Dr. Edward Tronick. So, in this experiment, a mother is placed in front of her 12-month-old baby. She was asked to interact positively with the baby, talking with him with a high-pitched voice, smiling, making funny mimics, etc. We could clearly see the baby being happy, trying also to communicate with the mother. Then we asked that mother to stop talking, stop her interaction with the baby, keeping a still face while looking through the baby, not at the baby. And that's why actually we call it the still face experiment. And what did they observe? They witnessed the baby becoming confused, disorganized, and distressed just before starting to cry. So you see, the young child, especially the infant actually, has this capacity to feel our emotions 10 times stronger. They don't know what we feel, but they feel what we feel. The same way, we pinpoint the necessity for the parent to acknowledge the emotional presence of their child. If not, the child could be at risk of emotional neglect. So we define emotional neglect, CEN, as the incapacity or difficulty of a parent to respond to his child's emotional need. Dr. Jonas Webb, she's a psychotherapist, specifies that the emotional neglect is not something that the parent does to the child, but something that the parent fails to do for the child. She goes on to say, and I'm quoting, "The fact that it's not something that happens, but rather something that fails to happen, our brain doesn't record it and our eyes don't see it," end quote. So we can imagine how it is so easy for the CEN, childhood emotional neglect, to do some silent damage. So we all know that the child's emotional needs are to be nurtured, to be encouraged, to be listened to get attention and affection, to have his presence acknowledged, to be defended, to be noticed and comforted when he feels angry or hurt, to feel like the parent believes in him and that same parent is proud of him, etc. So basically, we could regroup different types of parents, about 12 of them actually, that are more at risk of neglecting their child's emotions. But we're only going to present 7 of the most relevant ones today. So number 1, for example, the narcissistic parent tends to bring down the child often to prevent him from looking bad in front of other people. It's also the parent who always wants to be right and is unable to recognize when he's made a mistake or when he's wrong. The child feels like who he is or what he does doesn't really matter, just so long the parent don't look bad. He also gets to believe that the parent and everyone around him are always right and that he is always wrong. This child learns to be shameful. Therefore, his emotional need for validation is dismissed. Number 2, we have the extremely authoritative parent that shows love to the child only when he or she obeys him at any cost. The child feels like the only way he could feel love is when he does what he's told. The child grows up to be an adult with less assertiveness, also with a lack of decision making. Some adults who became people pleasers are usually those who are very exposed to authoritative parents that expected them to be perfect all the time to somehow deserve their love. Those parents value more what the child can do instead of who he is. The child's emotional need that is neglected here is the sense of approval. It also happens sometimes that those future adults overcompensate for that lack of approval by manifesting behaviors that are similar to maladaptive adolescents, such as being controlling, defiant, arrogant, and sometimes narcissistic. Number 3, we also have, on the other hand, the extra permissive parent who does not give any boundaries. The child can feel misguided or not important enough to be protected by the parent. May become someone who goes out of his way to seek attention, no matter what kind of attention. The child's neglected emotional needs are protection and guidance. Later in life, he may also become a forever teenager adult, going in life with no proper guidelines and not knowing how to regulate his own emotions. So, there is the widowed, divorced, or separated parent, and even the depressed parent. In that case, the parent who just experienced the loss or separation may be dealing with his or her own depressed feelings. That way, it could be more difficult for them to be psychologically present for the child. And what is very sad is the fact that the kid tends to blame himself for the parents' feelings. He feels guilty for needing the parents to be there for him, as that parent already feels depressed. This child's neglected emotional needs here is to be reassured and to be comforted. Number 5, the addictive parent. So this addictive parent is one kind of parenting actually where childhood emotional neglect is more flagrant. The parent focuses more on what they're addicted to than the child's emotional need. They could be addicted to substances, of course, drug or alcohol, to their phones or computer, to compulsive behaviors like surfing on social media, online video gaming, or online shopping, and even gambling, etc. The child's neglected emotional need would simply be to have his parents' attention. Number 6. Some of us have dealt with the perfectionist parent. Patterns are similar to the narcissistic parent. The parents overlook the child's emotion. What matters most for them is to have that perfect child who is well behaved, get good grades in school, good in sport, excel to some talent he has, etc. The parent's acknowledgement for the child is based on his performance in everything. And the child's emotional neglected need is for his parent to simply acknowledge him for who he is than for what he does. You see, the risk factor of having a perfectionist parent is to be feeling very insecure in most area of life later on. Some others become adults who are perfectionists in return towards themselves, towards others, and towards their future children. The problem is that being a perfectionist often hides someone's insecurities. It's like chasing after your own tail, because just how good enough is actually good enough. Number 7, the workaholic parent. By his absence, he automatically puts the child at risk for emotional neglect. When a parent is present in that case, he is so tired that he feels that home is a place where he would be charging his batteries to get some strength so he could restart the same routine tomorrow. There again, the child's presence is dismissed, therefore not acknowledged or barely acknowledged. The child's neglected emotional needs are nurturing presence, attention, and affection. Very often, those parents feel guilty about not spending enough time with their child and tend to compensate by providing a lot of material things. But we all know, just like Albert Einstein said, not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that can be counted truly counts. And what I find more unfortunate about us adults who have experienced CEN is that subtle feeling of emptiness inside without knowing why. And another way to suspect that we were probably victims of CEN is by constantly blaming ourselves for everything, beating ourselves up all the time, and feeling that we don't matter or are not as important as anyone else. I myself felt that emptiness at one point in my life. I know today that many characteristics described before were expressed by my own parents. To be more specific, they fell in the categories of the narcissistic, extreme authoritative, and perfectionist father, and a depressed mother. I now understand, as an adult, that when our childhood emotions were not validated or not adequately responded to, we get to disregard our own feelings, even repressing them. I remember growing up putting everyone's emotional needs above my own, trying to make everyone feel good and feel happy, even if I was unhappy. That was a way that I was searching for validation and a sense of significance. Indeed, the worst comment someone could ever give me from my teenage years until today is, I am disappointed in you. These words hit me more than if someone would have said, I hate you. But thankfully, I have addressed my childhood emotional wounds by facing my parents about it. I received help from psychological therapy and a lot of prayers from my part. So I say to everyone, as God is my source, everyone else is my resource now. And before you go, I would suggest you take a little quiz of 22 questions that would reveal if you have experienced CEN in your life. This yes or no quiz has been created by Dr. Jonas Webb, who's the same psychological therapist I was talking to you earlier. And need to know that she is specialized actually in CEN therapy, childhood emotional neglect therapy. So you could go on her website to drjonaswebb.com to take that quiz. So if this podcast have resonated with you, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. You could leave a comment below or share with somebody, or you could even follow me on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. Stay tuned and get notification for our next episode on how we can recover from CEN. And until then, thank you for tuning to Heart-Mind Equation to unlock hidden potentials.